Director साहब lights on करो please, lights. अरे surprise! Look what we have here. It's Yezdi's newest adventure motorcycle. We rode the motorcycle, the both of us, and this is our first ride video. Massive thank you to Karan, who was kind enough to lend us his motorcycle.
Bro, आप हमारे करण और अर्जुन दोनों.
क्या बात है, वाह.
We have a set of questions that you have sent to us.
Oh yeah, let's put it
from
that way.
which I think we've got a total of 9 questions that we're going to answer in this video. We're not mentioning the usernames or the user handles because there's just too many to mention because each question is being asked by multiple people.
Exactly.
So this is the official PowerDrift Yezdi Adventure frequently asked questions.
That's correct. Should I ask you question number 1?
Alright, let's do that.
Chalo, question number 1 for Shumi is that you guys asked, is the engine adventure worthy?
Most adventure motorcycles are expected to do their best work at the bottom and the mid-range, but what they went for is a linear state of tune. So when you ride this motorcycle, it's not like it accelerates harder at the bottom or runs out at the top. It's really a flat curve. Yeah. It is weaker at the top end than it is at the bottom and the mid. In that sense, it's okay. The problem is that it's based on the Perak engine, which if you remember is not a very vibey engine, but it's a slightly thrashy engine up top.
Noisy engine.
Yeah. So it's the same thing happens here. Okay, so peak torque is about 6,000 and I think 6,000 in 6th gear is about 105 kilometers an hour.
About that.
If you cruise at about 100, 103, you get beyond that and you're hustling the motorcycle. Pegs will vibrate, the tank will vibrate and it just sounds thrashy. But I think there is an area of improvement there that this 334cc engine across the board can get.
Sure.
So adventure worthy, yes, it's a reasonably quick engine. In the lower gears at lower speeds, it's actually really nice. But I think in the roll-on department, where you're already say doing 100, you want to overtake somebody, you're going to have to make gear changes. And it feels a little less powerful than it is. Again, not a deal breaker unless you're like a real hustler, but there is room for improvement. But the gearbox is actually quite nice. The gear shift really nice.
Sure.
So overall, I would say it's just short of likable because of the thrashiness, but otherwise it's actually a pretty decent engine. So, my turn to ask you a question. How does it handle as ADV motorcycles go? How does that thing handle?
When you look at this segment, it's got a 21-inch setup at the front. It's got a 17 at the rear. And for this kind of setup, they're not known for sporty handling. They're known to
let me just explain that. I'll just take one sentence. 21s are good for bikes that don't like to get deflected off the path, which is what you're looking for off-road.
Correct.
On the road, they cause a little bit more of a disconnect in terms of feedback.
Correct.
So you have to learn to trust the front end a little bit more than you would with a 17-inch front wheel.
Absolutely. So in that sense, this is not like a sporty handling motorcycle, but when you start to realize that the suspension, when it comes into play and when you realize it's not like a really soft setup, it's slightly set up on the firmer side. As you start picking up speed, it's not settled in a way as maybe the Himalayan is settled.
Yeah, so if you have small bumps on the road and you're constantly hitting them, something like a Himalayan will just iron them out completely, whereas this almost never does. The rear is always moving you around a little bit, the front is a little bit unsettled all the time.
Correct.
On a long tour, 5 hours of just little bit of shaking around also happens to the 390 Adventure, I think.
Correct.
I think there is a better setup available, but this motorcycle is just a little bit on the stiff side for me.
Absolutely. So in terms of handling as well, I mean, most of you all are going to use this on the road and maybe 10% of your riding is going to be off-road. As soon as you take it off-road, which 10% of you all will, the suspension for me should have been a little on the softer side considering that this is an ADV.
Yeah, so if you saw our scrambler video, well, my scrambler video, that was just way too stiff. Okay, so this is not that kind of stiff. You will be able to live with it, but I think a better setup, for example, on the Himalayan or the X-Pulse is available.
Okay, third question, is the weight distribution appropriate? Considering that this is a 188 kilo motorcycle, do you think that the weight is distributed appropriately?
I think that Yezdi has very clearly and obviously benchmarked the Himalayan. This is pretty normal. When there is a successful product in the market, a lot of manufacturers will ensure that the benchmarks are met. But I think the issue I have with this motorcycle is that it hasn't done anything else apart from benchmarking and succeeding at their benchmark in that sense, right? So this is about 11 kilos lighter than the Himalayan. And on the move, it feels more modern than the Himalayan. All the controls are relatively light and all of that things. The way the engine revs and sounds, all of that is pretty modern in that sense. You will not notice the weight of this as much lighter than the Himalayan or much heavier than the Himalayan. It's pretty reasonably balanced in that sense. And remember that the 11 kilos lighter doesn't include the weight of the front frame because that's not how it's measured.
Correct.
But you can't buy the bike without the front frame.
Yeah, that's
so when you add it back to the motorcycle's weight as a standard part of the motorcycle, the weight difference between this and the Himalayan won't honestly be as big as it looks on paper. My turn to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you think that the Yezdi Adventure sets a new benchmark in the segment?
Well, honestly, no.
Oh,
I think
great.
the simple answer is no. It does not set a new benchmark, and like you mentioned it in very briefly, it meets a certain competition in a certain place. For me, and I think I have this problem with manufacturers, when they bring in new products, they should be absolutely setting a new benchmark every single time.
Especially if you're not first in the segment.
Especially when you're not first in the segment.
Agreed.
Because when you look at the Himalayan, for example, which is obviously going to be the motorcycle that it competes against,
Yep.
the Himalayan is at the end of its life.
Yeah.
And when a new Himalayan comes in, and there are rumors of a 450 coming in, and when that motorcycle comes in, this is going to set back. And in that sense, for me, no, this does not set a new benchmark. Does it meet competition in a certain way? Absolutely it does.
Yeah. And before you say that this is anti-SD or pro Royal Enfield anything,
No, it's not
remember
that.
that this happens to everybody, okay? So Bajaj with their F250 and the N250.
Yeah.
They should have been setting a much higher benchmark for performance, especially given the fact that it's the 220 successor.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
When TVS started out with the Apache, the benchmark was the Pulsar. But
Yeah.
luckily for TVS, they moved it on, and the current RTR 200, etc., are setting a very high standard.
Even the
of-
160s, it's like you're
Yeah.
every time they roll out
Correct.
an iteration, it's setting a new benchmark in performance, in numbers, or whatever that is.
Yeah, when Hero did the 160R again, they benchmarked the RTR 160, but they created a dramatically different feeling motorcycle that does something else.
Correct.
You know, so in that sense, I think was an opportunity
Yeah.
that the Adventure, yes, the Adventure would do something different, but it does more or less what the Himalayan does, and we can argue whether that does it better or this does it better. But the idea that you come into the market 5 years after the Himalayan with a motorcycle that more or less does what the Himalayan does, missed opportunity. You should have raised the game.
That when you bring in a new motorcycle to a market, you should absolutely be like Ranveer Singh. Like when Ranveer Singh enters a room with his aura and with his new
Oh, I
clothes,
thought you meant-
everybody should like turn around and look and, oh man, this is like Ranveer Singh, come on.
Oh, I
And for
thought
me,
you
this,
meant Deepika Padukone, but okay, no worries.
but you get the drift, yeah? I mean, everybody gets the drift. Okay, my next question to you, Shumi, is how is the braking unit?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me a maths question. So the braking unit is actually pretty okay. I have no problem with the brakes. I like the idea that they have 3 ABS calibrations. One in which is off-road where you can switch off the rear, normal one, and in rain where the interventions are more earlier and more aggressive. Again, 21-inch setup with a long travel suspension means the feel of the brake is a little bit far away, but that's part of more or less every 21-inch long travel
ADV,
suspension setup that I've used, especially at the budget end. But I do have a question for you.
Sure.
Is the instrument cluster easy to read, and should it have had more features? And we are asking him this because he's the Bluetooth expert in the company.
I'm not the Bluetooth expert, but I'll say it anyway. I think there's quite a bit of real estate on the instrument cluster, right? But for some reason, Classic Legends decided that we won't use the entire bit and we'll keep a lot of the things blank, which is surprising. And
For example, the USB ports, and there's 2 of them.
Yeah, it's
good on you. But it's like a box that sticks out of the handlebar. Industrial design, okay, I get it. But I think it could easily have been integrated into that bezel, and it would have looked much neater for it. And the vehicle integration, in terms of all the packages of the vehicle coming together, would have looked a little bit better because of it. I also think that the tiltability of the screen has very, very limited value.
oh yes, absolutely.
Because you're going to do it once, so whether it is easily adjustable or not is not of big consequence. And nobody I know who's a serious rider ever looks down at the screen when they're standing up. So the logic that you can tilt the screen so you can see it when standing up, weak.
Yeah, but I think just to finally answer that question, is it easier to read? I mean,
Yes.
it's not easy or hard. I mean, it is easy to read and everything is pretty easily readable.
Yeah.
Should it have more features? I don't think so. For whatever a motorcycle has
Yes,
to
I
offer
agree.
in this sense of adventure riding, I think it pretty much covers everything. So I don't think I'm missing anything. But yes, the space should have been utilized better is what I feel. And for me, again, that is a sort of a missed opportunity from Classic.
Yeah, luckily, I would say that the Himalayan has a pretty
Oh yeah,
cluster. And
too many things going on.
Yeah,
for the
and from
motorcycle.
that perspective, this is neater.
Okay, my question to you, what do you think of the price?
I knew there was a maths question coming from me.
हाँ, तो आ गया, चलो, आ गया. What do you think of the
So, I
price?
think the price of the Adventure starts at 2,10,000 rupees ex-showroom.
2 lakh, about
9,000,
9,990.
which makes it about 5,000 or 6,000 rupees cheaper than the Himalayan, something
That's
like that. But that front rack is a mandatory accessory, and again, it's not a Yezdi thing. I think Honda's done it for the longest time with their side stands and front number plates and stuff. But a mandatory accessory means you will not be able to purchase this motorcycle if you don't purchase that accessory. At 5,000 rupees for that, it's the exact same price as the Himalayan. And I would say that based on what we've seen of the motorcycle that we've ridden so far, it's pretty close to the Himalayan what it promises.
Correct.
But we're going to have to ride both the motorcycles back to back to tell you if this is a better motorcycle than the Himalayan or not. Before you account for what Varun said about new Himalayan coming, resetting the benchmark.
Yeah, for sure.
As of today, Himalayan is a benchmark ADV. And I think if you think the Himalayan is value for money, if that proves reliable, this is a question that cannot be answered for any new motorcycle. But if it proves reliable, if this is what it's offering 5 bhp more than the Himalayan.
Yes, roughly.
Right, it's offering less torque than the Himalayan, but it
About
also
1
has
Newton
less
meter.
weight than the Himalayan, but the rack weight adds up. So it's very, very close. So it'll be close.
Let me ask him the last question that you guys have asked. And I think that's a very, very important question. And the question is that how does it compare against the Himalayan? हम लोग ने इतना काम Himalayan का भी have spoken about. How does it finally compare with the Himalayan?
I would say that off the top of my head, this feels like a modern small ADV.
Sure.
And the Himalayan in feel is a slightly older feeling small ADV, although the performance and all that is going to be pretty similar. Himalayan's ride quality is better than this, but I think this is a little bit quicker than this off the line and all of those things. But I don't think this is the right place to answer that question because I think we need to have both the motorcycles together.
You're a motorcycle.
वो Himalayan आ गया क्या? आया?
I
अच्छा.
think so, हाँ.
Sorry, we're going to go ride some bikes. This is in essence what the Yezdi Adventure is. Lights, we can cut the lights.
Next
we're going to
video
head
is
out.
Adventure versus
Stay tuned.
Himalayan. See you. Yeah, see you. Lights बंद करो. Director क्या कर रहे हैं? हाँ चलो. Compare story बनाते हैं.